If you're listening to this show right now, you are a member of the Gracious Gang, because this is the Gracious Guest Show, the Gracious Guest Podcast, and you are my gracious guest because you have chosen to set aside whatever you were doing, or at least to sort of accompany what you were doing with this podcast. So I'm your host, Mike Creevy, and I can't tell you how thrilled I am that you are here today tuning in to the Gracious Guest Show. So welcome. If this is your first time tuning into the program, what this is all about is, it's kind of a big question mark in some ways to some people, I suppose, but wonder. Wonder is the theme of this show. And, you know, it's wonder as a human experience, as a contemplation on the finer things in life and what makes them finer, and those mysterious sort of things in life that happen to us when we read a book that just, you know, I might have it on my to-do list to read this book because of some, you know, reading challenge that I'm doing for the year, or it's even something that was assigned to me in school, or whatever the case may be, but then all of a sudden something hits me, and it's like a good hitting. What I mean by that is, we've all had that moment where you're watching a movie, you're reading a book, you're taking a walk, you're on a trip, you have a meal, something happens in your life that sort of triggers some deeper thing within you. It resonates deeper within you than it maybe seems like it should. So if we just kind of on a pure materialistic reading of it, you know, it's like, okay, well, I'm just reading this book because I have to do this for school. But then, lo and behold, something happens in me, and I actually learn something from it beyond just what the objectives of the class might be, or it connects, it opens a doorway, it triggers a childhood memory, it reminds me of someone maybe I need to forgive for something, or maybe it inspires me. And the word inspiration, you know, it really means like to breathe within you. There's like this idea of like this in-breathing. I draw new air. I get this like second wind, you know, we say like when you run or something like that, that might challenge my assumptions, or might raise my mind to something else, might raise my mind to, something I hadn't really thought of before. So that's kind of what I try to at least think about on this show. So it's a little nondescript, I guess, in that way, but it's also something that we can find, I think, anywhere we look. So wonder is the theme of the Gracious Guest Show, as is, I would say, in a lot of ways, the other stuff I have over on my website. So if you want to check out the website, go to thegraciousguest.org if you haven't been there before. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. You don't have to listen to every episode if you don't want to. There's a lot of different, you know, topics, obviously, with the overall theme in mind. There's book reviews, there's movie reviews, there's, like I said, you know, there's sometimes I talk about food, sometimes I just talk about life. Or today, in this case, the topic is my top 3 lessons learned from show hosting. You know, I'm going to talk about something that seems a little random, but if you listen to the program, you know that I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, that I wanted to take this up here today, because this is episode 50. And so I don't do the show nearly as much as I'd like to, but I try to do at least 2 per month, you know, if I can. I used to be a little more than that, but lately it's been a little busy with our move and our sort of settling down into our new routine here. So we are back home where we grew up, and moved back from the Penn State sort of area up in State College after Christine and my wife got her PhD. And so, you know, there's a lot of changes going on, and we're getting used to our new routine. And I am sort of in between jobs at this point, so I'm full on in the job hunt and everything. So I had set some time aside to finish my master's degree, which I finished last week with all the course requirements, basically, and now I just have to take the comprehensive exam in a couple months. So keep me in your thoughts and prayers, if you would, on that. It's going to be kind of a little hectic when it gets to November. But at any rate, here we are in mid-August at the time of this recording. It's August 16th right now, and I wanted to kind of commemorate the 50th episode of this program with just sharing with you, as some people have kind of asked me about this process, or when they're curious about, you know, my experience from doing this. I thought I'd share just some kind of lessons learned, and I just picked 3 for today, and that's kind of what I'm gonna endeavor to check out right now. So, looking at this, and so let me just clarify here too, because this is 50 episodes into the Gracious Guest program, but I also host another program that's a little more specifically faith-themed. It's a youth and young adult topical program I've been hosting, and I've actually hosted that for longer. And I continue to do that with a local Catholic radio station in the Harrisburg area on Holy Family Radio, AM 720. It's an AM station, in the Harrisburg area, and they also have streams and stuff up on their website, and we post previous episodes of the show for... It's kind of like a podcast. They don't really have a podcast feature set up right now, but we post MP3s of the program after it airs. We post them on our Facebook site. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, feel free to go check that out, too, over on Facebook. If you just type Ever Ancient, Ever New Show, or EAEN Show, it should pop up, and you can kind of go down the wall and just click on old MP3s and download them that way with the different show topics. And that's a guest interview program, too, most of the time. So... I'd say like probably 70%, 75% of the time. Sometimes I'll sort of fly solo with it with some topics, but so that is up to 75 episodes at the time of this recording right now. So 125 distinct episodes that I've hosted in the last 4 years, and I don't have any training in radio broadcasting. I'm kind of doing that right now in a volunteer capacity at the station, so I'm always willing to learn. I'm always trying to learn more, and radio has been really instrumental for me, and I've always been interested in it. In another life, I would possibly have gotten into a career in radio, just something I really enjoy. So I'm always willing to learn, is I think one thing. That's not a specific one of the three I'm going to mention, but that's just kind of, I think, a good start point, to always be willing to learn, and no matter how much experience you have, to never think for 2 seconds, or even 1 second for that matter, that you're somehow beyond growth and development and that kind of thing. Because, that goes with anything in life, right? The moment you think you've got it all figured out, the moment you stop being open to learning, then you just start to die. You don't grow any. If you're not growing, you're dying. So that's something to keep in mind. But let me jump to the top 3 things. What I consider my top 3 lessons learned from show hosting. And the first one is this. It's what I call, I've come up with the title for this, is the Goldilocks principle. And that is, don't think too much and don't think too little. Don't think too much, don't think too little, the Goldilocks principle. You want to be just right in the middle there. And what do I mean by this? Well, when I first started off hosting, I'm just kind of an organization-minded person by nature. I really like to have everything in its place, place for everything and everything in its place, as my friend Brian likes to say, that old saying. And that is good. It's not. I'm not saying that's bad. But sometimes, I would be so concerned, so wrapped around the axle at trying to get the perfect interview, the absolute perfect program, that I just sort of over-script it. I would go down and really get down into the weeds and kind of go beyond good show prep to too much show prep. And what sometimes that would lead to is that would occasionally lead me to kind of have such a rigid structure to my notes, my outline ahead of the program, especially if I'm interviewing somebody, that, I would be I'd miss opportunities, basically. I'd say, here's our 3 or 4 things we want to go over, and I'd share it with the person ahead of time. We'd agree on that, and then we'd start talking, and there just would be an opportunity that would come up in the conversation that was very organic, that would be an opportunity to kind of go down maybe a slightly different path or a tangential path, and I'd miss that opportunity. Or I wouldn't pursue that enough because I didn't have, sort of the guts or the wisdom, maybe is a better word, to just at that point maybe crumple up the notes, the outline, or diverge from it a little bit if you need to. Now, of course, you can go to the other extreme and think too little about something and do no prep and just be like, oh, I'm just going to wing it. There's a time and place for that to a degree, I think, but then, you of course run the risk of just being sloppy and it not being good content. And, my thought is, if you guys are tuning into this, whoever's listening to this, you deserve at least my best effort. You may not need me to become obsessive and weird, and burn myself out, because then is it really worth it, And so that's just, one thing I think, not to think too much or too little, and I think that goes for any public speaking as well. You have to do your work, you have to work hard, you have to prep it, you have to prepare for it, but then, then you can kind of just once it starts, go with it, go with the flow. If it starts to go a different direction that's, important, you got to try to develop the judgment to really discern if that's a good way to go. Sometimes it's not, and you have to kind of bring it back on track. But that's one thing. Another thing, especially with this particular show, I would say, from just lessons learned from hosting this program and preparing it, is the idea that, I'm telling you guys, wonder, I'm thoroughly convinced more and more, wonder, the marvelous, the stuff that makes us stop for a second and go, wow, the wow factor, that is everywhere around us all the time. And I don't need to tell you guys, you go to any news outlet, you look at the headlines, you look at situations going on in the world, even like close to home, and it's just miserable sometimes. War and betrayal and corruption and disappointment and being let down, and it can really become depressing very fast. And I'm not making light of that at all, because it really does hurt people. I mean, the world hurts people. We hurt others around us, sometimes without even meaning to. And it can be a very dark, dark world. That is true. We can't pretend that's not true. So you don't gloss over that. I try not to, by just running around. Like, if you've ever seen, this is a good example of this, if you've ever seen the movie Lego Movie from, I think, like 2014, not the Lego Batman movie, but the first, Lego movie, when they go to like that magical dream place in the clouds with Unikitty, and she's going around talking about how just everything is free and fun, and there's no rules, and everybody's happy, and you never indulge any like negative thoughts. You just bury them deep, deep down where you'll never find them. And her eyes get all fiery and red, and then she like snaps out of it, and she's super like happy again. That's messed up, right? So like you don't like repression's not good, because you can't bury that stuff forever. If you run around pretending that I'm okay, you're okay, which, by the way, newsflash, that's not true, ever, okay? Nobody is a perfect walking saint. Even the saints, like in the Catholic teaching on this is very clear, even the saints were sinners, who spent a lifetime learning how to be saints. So we have to keep that in mind. So everybody has problems. The world's a dark and miserable place a lot of times. But that is not the whole truth. That's the mistake I think we make. The world is awful and dark and scary, and therefore it's only awful and dark and scary. Well, that doesn't follow at all. That's not logical. And I think every one of us, if we're honest and put the effort in, that's not true, right? And honestly, guys, just to kind of, I don't want to go into this too much, but just to put a very fine point on it, because this is a huge issue that affects a lot of people, myself included, very deeply. When you look at situations where people are contemplating suicide, something that terrible, that serious, that much pain, one of the things that anyone who knows anything about counseling people in that situation or trying to help people in that situation is you have to remind people, that this is, whatever you're going through, no matter how bad it is, it's not the whole picture. It's not. This will pass. It will. It always will. It's, that's not a foolish optimism. It's a recognition that there's a lot more to life than just the terrible bad stuff, even as bad as it could possibly be. So, for example, I had a really rough day the other day. I was mad. I was impatient. I was not being like the dad and the dog owner that I could be. My daughter wasn't listening to me. My dog wasn't listening to me. Nobody was listening to me, and I just felt so angry. I was like, will someone who's supposed to listen to me, listen to me? And I actually think I said that out loud. And I was just mad. I was angry. I didn't handle it very well. And then I just, later, like I was able to calm down and praise God. I took a deep breath. I kind of got over that hill. But I had to deliberately sort of force myself to choose to see some good things. And throughout the day, like I tried to appreciate little things. Like I was actually appreciative. Like I made myself be appreciative that there's food in my refrigerator. I made myself be appreciative. It might look like grasping for straws, but it really matters. I saw a butterfly. I know this sounds dumb maybe, but I was like, that's a beautiful butterfly. You have to do that, especially if it seems cheesy and you don't want to do it, because sometimes that's exactly the time that you need to do that the most, I think. So honestly, as far as content for this show, like something I've learned from show hosting, it's because the theme of this show is precisely trying to find wonder in the most unlikely places sometimes. I kind of practice that more and more because of this, and it's really helped me a lot. And that's important, but I really hope it helps you too, because I could just do this myself and journal and whatever, but I want to be able to help other people too with this sort of thing. So as I speak, my dog, Petey, our new dog, he's 12 weeks old, little adorable puppy who we love him, but he chews stuff and he poops and pees inside sometimes, and he can be a little rough around the edges, but he's cute and he's adorable, and he's laying at my feet completely passed out while I record this. So that's just pretty sweet, and trying to find the wonder in things like that. Like, life is good. Our struggles do come to an end, or they, whatever it is, it'll pass. But we have to make the effort. We really have to make the effort. We have to try to surround ourselves with good, people who will hold us accountable, people who will also help us to see the good, see the light. To find good books and find good movies and find things that will uplift us, because the world's not handing us that. The world is only serving up burning cars in Baghdad and, missing persons, who had terrible things done to them. And you need to be aware of these things, and you need to think about and pray about and help other people who are in terrible situations, but we can't do that by just always reveling in the darkness. We have to make an effort, to bring some light. And that's what wonder is all about. As I said before, Greek, thaumazo, wonder, marvel, the inexplicable, the beyond, the stuff that calls us to look up and look out and see the bigger picture, see the context, and that takes effort. And, we have to choose whether we're going to make that effort or not. I can't make you make that effort, but I can tell you this. When I don't make that effort, my day is always worse than when I do make that effort. Every single time. And if you're like me, you know that. But some days you're just like, I don't want to do it today. Well, fair enough. But, some days I don't want to do this. Some days I don't want to go to work. Some days I don't want to go to the grocery store. Like, that's just life, right? A lot of times you just make yourself do it, and then later on you're like, I'm really glad I did that. So wonder is everywhere. Wonder is everywhere. Learn how to find it. Keep looking for it. You won't, if you're looking for it, you're not going to miss it. If you close yourself off to it, that's when you miss it. And so that kind of segues into the last one. The third thing I would just say, lessons learned from show hosting is have fun with it. Life is too short, right? And there's, like we said, there's so many things out there that can kind of drag us down. With show hosting, with any kind of creative venture, don't let the criticisms of others, drag you down. Don't let, what if they don't like it? What if this happens? What if that happens? Just fight that. Just keep pushing. Don't let that keep you from doing something amazing. Don't let that keep you from doing something fun and exciting, having fun with it, learning how to kind of go beyond your comfort zone a little bit. Maybe find a new hobby, find a new habit. Maybe you draw some sense of wonder and accomplishment and excitement and sort of bigger picture thinking out of pottery or painting or taking an acting class or whatever it is. These are the things that really give our lives, I think, some vim and vigor and to really make life a little more exciting, break out of that mundane nature a little bit and get out there and do something. So for me, I love doing this. I love writing. I'm working on the final draft here of a book I'm trying to get published. So that's super exciting, and maybe I'll tell you about that some other time. And but just, get out there, find a hobby, find something fun, find something that brings some wonder and awe and joy into your life, and try to find some people who can encourage you in that. If your family's good with that sort of thing, great. If not, make some new friends. Get out there and try to find somebody who will help encourage you in that and really help you expand and become more than you were yesterday. So some words of comfort and support for you out there, and I'm so glad you tuned into the Gracious Guest Show today. I'm Mike Creevy, host of the Gracious Guest program. Check me out on Twitter. It's @gracious_guest. I'm over there on Facebook also. My actual Facebook page, Mike Creevy. You can look me up on there. Go to thegraciousguest.org. As always, the website's got a lot of great stuff there. You can also have me to your event. Come and give a presentation on a couple different topics, mostly faith-related, but I'm also expanding to kind of some more of the wonder themes and stuff as well. Kind of the life finding that joy and fervor in our lives too. So it's all related, and I really am happy that you tuned in today. So check, and also have your friends subscribe if they haven't, to the program over on iTunes or Podbean or Pocket Cast. There's different ways you can find the program. And until next time, don't forget to wonder. Take care.